Monday, May 6th, has issued a high risk of severe weather, and it is confirmed that it is causing damage. Again, it's this little area right here. If you are in this area north of Parkham, Now, hello everybody, my name is Christian and welcome back to Skycast, and didn't really expect to be making another one of this type of videos, but we have another high risk of severe weather. This has been the second one issued this year, which is fairly rare in its own self. Violent tornado outbreak is expected with numerous EF3 plus tornadoes, and on top of that, more severe weather as we get into latter portions of the week. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, for today, we do have this level 5 out of 5 severe weather risk. We do have this high risk of severe weather across portions of Arkansas, Tennessee, you have southeastern Missouri, and then portions of western Kentucky, Mayfield, Memphis, Jonesboro, Poplar Bluff, and then there's areas out here near Cape Girardeau. Never know if I'm pronouncing that right. But all of those are under the 5 out of 5 risk for the potential for strong, violent tornadoes. That moderate risk stretches all the way up to Louisville, Kentucky, even portions of my neck of the area. Would not expect that to get pushed a bit east, and this high risk get extended northward and towards like Evansville a little bit. But would not be shocked to continue to see this push east for that prefrontal tornado threat. And then an even broader, that enhanced risk all the way down to Dallas and Fort Worth, that level 2 out of 5 from Detroit all the way down to Abilene. Like, it is really just a very widespread event for this. Now, we take a look at tornadoes. It's going to be a fairly tornado-driven threat. You have this 10% hatched risk, which is the threat for strong tornadoes. But as we continue to kind of highlight that 15 and that 30%, we start getting into the more violent tornado range. And the Storm Prediction Center is very confident in that tornado threat. This is a strictly tornado-driven risk. Really did shock me. Was not expecting them to pull out a high risk for this severe weather event, but they did. And then as we get into the wind, 30% from that QLCS development from Illinois and Arkansas all the way out into portions of eastern Kentucky. And then that hail threat, not really as broad, but once again, central Kentucky all the way out to eastern Missouri and down towards the Fort Worth metro. So definitely a significant severe weather event. As we start continuing this through, we do have more severe weather days that should impact this this area again. But I just want to stick with this for just a moment. Now, if we do go through and we do play the recent HRRR, there has been a fair amount of disagreement with this model, so definitely take this with a grain of salt. But there, if you can look right here, there is not much morning convection whatsoever across the state of Kentucky, across southern Illinois, portions of eastern Arkansas, where we are highlighting the greatest threat for this severe weather. But if we kind of do play it, you can see that they do have this line beginning to form. But ahead of that line specifically, we do have these little itty-bitty cells begin to form. And those are what we call prefrontal supercells. And that is going to be the driver for these tornado events. You can see these little updraft lines don't necessarily mean tornadoes, but they do mean rotating thunderstorms. And that is probably where we're going to have that greatest seeing for there to be tornadoes. Now, as we continue, this line does end up forming, but look at what happens. Across that 30% area, that greater tornado threat, we do have all these updrafts within the line, so any of these embedded supercells, or just the QLCS in general that can just span tornadoes, that is going to be a threat with this. And not on top of that, you're also going to have these prefrontal supercells. Once again, southern Indiana has some of these. You got one moving into near the Clarksville, Tennessee area. And then eventually this line will continue on through. Will start to weaken tornado-wise, but will become more of a wind threat as you start getting into central Kentucky. I do think that 45% wind threat should be issued, and on top of that, that QLCS tornado threat will still exist. So I do think that either that 15% needs to be extended just a bit further east. That is just my personal opinion. But eventually that will continue on, and that will slowly weaken off. You can see how slow those updrafts begin. And that is going to turn into a flooding threat, which we will get into here in a moment. But definitely very active day here across the Ohio Valley. Now, we do have kind of a sounding here, and I do want to point some things out. We do have sufficient cape and things of that nature, so the storm juice is there. We do have sufficient heating, so that 75-degree mark, that 66-degree dew point. But one thing that I do want to note is that this is the environment kind of near western Kentucky, eastern Arkansas. Right over this, where this white line and this red line meet, that is what is known as a cap, and that is kind of a lid on the atmosphere. Think of it as a pressure cooker. The moment you take that lid off, the things that are inside, all that steam and stuff gets to kind of just blow out. That is practically what a cap is. And once that cap is broken in the atmosphere, storms will be able to practically explode. And that is what's going to lead to that rapid supercell development that can produce tornadoes and gorilla hail practically. But there is a little bit of a cap. It is not a huge cap, not really going to be anything too wildly significant. From at least what I'm seeing. So definitely will have a little bit of a limitation on storms that do form in this area, but it's not really going to be too crazy. If we also do take a look at the CIN model or the convective inhibition model, there is also a little bit of that, like I said, a little bit of that cap across the area that I just talked about. But once again, that is just going to rapidly move away as storms form. So not really going to be anything like I said, not really going to be anything too crazy. If storms fire a bit early, definitely will have a little bit of that inhibition for storms to spark. But really, really going to be a long day across this area. Here in central Kentucky, we're already seeing heating, and it is, as of right now, it's 11:41, and already seeing a lot of that heating. The clouds are moving away. Definitely another thing that we don't want to see. Now, if we are taking a look here on the satellite view and kind of show, we'd see we already have a ton of that heating across central Kentucky, one of the areas that is expected to see severe weather. But if we kind of zoom in, kind of unlock that zoom in, you can see that there are still clouds, but we do have a little bit of that clearing occasionally going on here across the high risk, general high risk, moderate risk area. And really, it does not take much of that clearing for significant severe weather to occur. So definitely also a concern for some of these broken clouds. We zoom in here, you can see we do have kind of these broken cloud areas even across western Kentucky. So definitely also a concern that that sun will be able to get through. Heat the atmosphere up, and then even with those clouds can help keep that instability in the atmosphere. Don't know why it reloaded like that. That's weird. But the clouds can keep the instability kind of trapped in the atmosphere. So definitely that's also a concern for that. Now, I am going to leave that right there for this severe weather event. One thing I do also want to talk about is going to be the excessive rainfall risk, because it's just going to be, just kind of run these through, it's going to be chaos. For today, we do have that moderate risk of excessive rainfall, once again, across many areas being impacted by severe weather. If we go into day 2, that gets upgraded to a high risk. You have that from Pine Bluff all the way up to Louisville for the moderate, and then that high risk area from Hopkinsville down to Jonesboro. We go into day 3, another moderate risk. That's extended a bit further west towards the Dallas-Fort Worth metro and towards southern Illinois. Day 4, another moderate risk of that excessive rainfall, Kentucky down to Arkansas. And then finally, day 5, things do calm down as it shifts down to the southeast. But definitely a few active stretches of that excessive rainfall and that flooding risk across this area already on top of the severe weather risk. If we do go back to severe weather, though, we go to day 2, we have this huge slight risk from the Dallas-Fort Worth metro all the way over to portions of Washington, D.C. Really not going to be that great of a tornado threat as we have seen. Could see a few tornadoes across southern Kentucky down to the Dallas-Fort Worth metro. Maybe an isolated one or two all the way over to Delaware, New Jersey. Really going to be that wind threat, that 15% wind, and that 15% significant hail threat on that. We go to day 3, slight risk of severe weather. Once again, areas that are going to be heavily impacted by today's storms. Western Kentucky down into the Dallas-Fort Worth metro. And as we continue, With that, the probabilities. Day 4, areas already impacted by today's severe weather event. You're going to be Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, highlighted by that 30% severe weather risk, already at that enhanced level. That 15% stretches from southern Ohio and Indiana down into eastern Texas, Tyler, Texas, once again near the Dallas-Fort Worth metro. Um, was to continue it through day 5. Not as big of a severe weather risk, but we do have that across Alabama, Georgia from that leftover storm juice that will continue through. And then I think that's it. We go through day 6, day 7, day 8, nothing really there. By all means, it's not over, but there's just not enough confidence for them to issue any other graphics. So kind of had to ramble that on, but definitely a big time severe weather pattern is arrived, and it's definitely going to impact a ton of people. Now, this video is about 10 minutes long, so I could ramble on about the trough that's causing this and all that, and the instability and all that in the atmosphere, kind of just break it down, but I'm not going to do that. It's about noon, trying to get this out as quick as I can. So stay weather aware, stay safe. Thank you for choosing Skycast as your go-to weather. We will not be live due to Wi-Fi issues, sadly. Really hate missing these upper level events, but we do have to. So thank you guys so much for watching. You can follow me on X, links in the description. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.